This is the Citico Creek Road. Up there where those cars are is the trailhead. And I've actually parked, there's no real parking up there, in the Citico Creek Warden Station campground, which is across that low water bridge there. The car's up to the left. Here's a GPS track of my route in red, superimposed on a topo map, starting at the Cherokee National Forest Warden Station campground top left, going to a camp at the right center. This is the actual trailhead for the South Fork of Citico Creek Trail. Not much parking here. There's only 3 cars here and 1 on the curb across the street. And there's the sign for Trail 105, South Fork, Citico Creek. I'm going to go up it a short ways and then turn on the North Fork of Citico Creek Trail. The first half mile plus of the South Fork Trail is a true trail. Like here is it's descending down toward Citico Creek, and you can hear and see Citico Creek down not far down below. This new portion was built some time ago, but when I first started coming here, we had to ford Citico Creek just around the bend there before this trail was built. And portions of this trail are pretty rugged. This first section, it's washed out in several places almost in the past as it skirts below a high bluff up there. Here's a view of Citico Creek just across from the campground that's on the right. So that's the trail coming down from the trailhead. That's the new trail, and this is the old trail that fords Citico Creek. It's not an easy ford down there, 100 yards or so. And from here on, they're together, of course. And here, the trail enters the Citico Creek Wilderness, which I worked on in the 1980s, getting protected, and it culminated in a bill passed by Congress to protect Citico Creek Wilderness in 1984. Forget exactly the acreage, but thousands and thousands of acres up there are protected as wilderness, hopefully forever. Okay, here's my friend Brian DeLay that I ran into totally unexpected, camping on the trail, and he's telling me about, he just got back from out west. So run through all those big trips, which I'm envious of.
So I did a 6-day trip with Catherine. We did the Texas Pass, Jackass Pass loop. We did it counterclockwise.
Oh, and what's that valley called? Cirque of the
Towers.
Cirque of the Towers, right.
Yes. Went over Texas Pass, dropped into Cirque of Towers, over Jackass Pass, and then back to Big Sandy Trailhead where we started. So that was a 6-day trip. Then I did and I videoed that, and that video hopefully will be out this next week. And then I did a 4-day solo trip. And then Catherine and I did a 1-night trip in the winds. Then because of the smoke, she went to Washington State and I went to Bighorns. And I did a 4-day trip in Cloud Peak Wilderness.
Right.
Then I left there and I went to South Dakota and did a 4-day trip in Black Elk Wilderness near Custer State Park, near the monument. And then after that I went down to Nebraska and did a 1-night trip in Nebraska, and I didn't film that. Nebraska was my 25th state to backpack in.
Oh, so. Okay. And then you drove back home?
Then I drove back home.
Right.
I was gone a total of 6 weeks.
Yeah. And here's Brian. He walked up with me a little ways, crossing the bridge just after we turned off the South Fork onto the North Fork Trail. And here's the South Fork. That's the Citico Creek going off to the left there and coming underneath the bridge I'm on. And the North Fork is coming in from the right. And the North Fork Trail crosses the Citico Creek on this bridge and then heads up the valley there. And after talking a bit more, we talked for probably an hour almost, I guess. Brian is heading back to the trailhead. I'm doing a short overnight backpack in the Citico Creek Wilderness, mainly to try out a new tent. I just bought the Big Agnes Tiger Wall UL2. We'll see how it works. Essentially, I'm going up the South Fork of the Citico Creek Trail to the North Fork of Citico Creek Trail, which I'm on now. And interestingly, just about a mile in, after parking at the Warden Station parking lot and campground, I ran into a longtime friend, Brian DeLay, and we were actually at one time involved with him borrowing money from banks that I represented for his real estate development business. And he's a big-time backpacker, has a YouTube channel and does lots of YouTubes of the backpacks, although he says he only does 30% of the trips he takes in video. So we talked for, as I said, I think almost an hour, I guess, or more, catching up. Equipment, lifestyle, what we can each do for our health, trips we've taken, people we know. Brian just got back from 2 weeks, or no, more than that, a month or so out west. So great to talk to him for a bit, and now I'm heading on up the North Fork Trail, which you can hear off in the distance. It's the North Fork Creek off in the distance, rather. A beautiful creek, somewhat high now. I was hoping to ford the creek, but may have to take the bypass trails instead. But we'll wait and see on that. There's, I think, 6 crossings before the site that I plan to camp at. The North Fork of Citico Creek is definitely a beautiful mountain stream with waterfalls over much of its entire length, and the trail goes almost right beside the creek for a long way. Here are some videos I took while walking the creek. I started hiking at around 1,670 feet, ended up camping at 2,200 feet or so not too much elevation getting there. But then the trail climbs up to 4,370 feet at Cherokee Gap. Lots of elevation gain. Well, that's crossing number 1, which I made it across with just a little water in my boots, so not sure whether I'm going to be able to make them from here on or not. Well, that was the second crossing, and I stayed fairly dry with waterproof boots and gaiters getting across with my backpack. But then I was filming it, so going back to get the camera, I fell right just before getting to the other side and got one of my boots a bit wet inside, but not too bad. So 2 down, 4 to go, and the other 4 other crossings, I think I can do a bypass trail, but we'll see. Here are some more videos of the beauty of the North Fork of Citico Creek. This is crossing 3, which I probably could make and stay relatively dry, but there's a bypass trail right there, and so I'm going to do the bypass. Crossing 4 is just, you know, short ways on up, and this trail bypasses both of them. The bypass trail is not easy, but it's a lot quicker than the crossings probably. And it gets even more precarious. This is mushroom season. There's some incredible mushrooms along the way. This is the biggest and most colorful. Lots of yellow mushrooms. Here are a couple of still photographs. First, more of the yellow mushrooms, and then a beautiful white mushroom. And here's a downy rattlesnake plantain. The flowers are gone. If anyone doubted that logging went on in these valleys, here's a cable from railroad days. Okay, here are crossings 5 and 6. Crossing 5 is anywhere along here, and then you cross back over up there, not far away, literally 150 feet or so. And there's a bypass trail, kind of precarious, particularly at high water like there is now, which goes up to the right there. But I'm going to give the bypass a try, because my feet aren't too wet, and I'd like to keep them that way, and not sure whether I can cross there without getting wet. That's the bypass trail right there. Kind of walking in water some of the way, obviously. And here's a view of the bypass trail from the other side after I'd crossed. Well, I got into camp somewhere around 5, I guess, and it's now 6:30. Got my tent up. It took longer than usual because it was only the second time I set it up, but I really like being able to go in, get in it on the sides rather than the front. Much easier. Particularly, I guess, with the older bones, it's a bit easier. There's where I'm cooking, and here's a fire pit. May build a fire after a while. Over there's my water, dripping and purifying. And the creek is right over there, which I think you can probably hear. It's a little cloudy. Most of the day it was cloudy. Tomorrow's supposed to be sunny, but the temperatures were low 70s tonight, low 50s are the predictions anyway. Finally sitting down to cook dinner, and I'm tired. My GPS said I did around 5 miles today, but I don't think that's right. It's more like 3.5 to 4, I guess. But I am tired. In fact, after I got my tent up, I sat down and ate a candy bar. I was so hungry. But tonight I'm having some good to go bibimbap or something like that. It's a spicy Korean mixed rice with sesame, carrots, and spinach. So we'll see about that. I'm also, just as a test, doing a ramen noodles that I've mixed up with some spices and Parmesan cheese. You can do it cold or hot and just let it sit for a while. On the internet, a YouTube video, Backpacking Gourmet, I think it is, or something like that. The lady says this is her best recipe, or one of her best. So I'm going to give that a try. And of course I've got some bouillon right there, and some iced tea, and a Trader Joe's chocolate bar with almonds for dessert. And I'm getting ready in a minute to put on those dry Crocs. My feet aren't totally soaked, but they're a little damp from the crossings, and particularly when I stepped in deeper than I should have. A bit after 7:30, I got a small fire started that I'm going to let burn just a little while, and probably get to bed fairly early tonight, somewhere after 8 o'clock, I guess. Here's the sun breaking through the clouds the next morning. As predicted, the temperature got down to near 40. I started getting up 7:45, and it was around 45 degrees then. So it's cool, but a beautiful blue sky up there. The roaring of the creek, a great place to spend the night. And there's my tent in the morning, getting ready to cook breakfast, and the fire pit. I ended up really liking my new tent. It's going to be my new 3-season solo tent for sure. Around 9 o'clock, the sun hit the camp a little through the leaves. 9:45, I'm heading down the trail. Not looking forward to the water crossings. I think I'm just going to wade and get wet and not worry about trying to stay dry heading out. But there is a lot of blue sky, so it's going to be warm later on. Still cold, below 50 right now, I think. Here's a GPS track of my route going out. It's about the same in blue, except that I didn't do the bypass between crossings 3 and 4. Hiking out, about a quarter of a mile down the North Fork, I discovered the campsite that I was actually looking for last night, which I'd camped at with some friends way back. It's a hard crossing, and it would have been difficult with the water at this level. At the lower level right there is where you have to cross, but there's a nice ramp there then leading up to a really good open campsite, which is right in the middle of the picture there, big enough for 2 or 3 tents. So maybe someday I'll come back and at low water and give it a try again. This is a view of the 5th and 6th crossings. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the bypass trail, which is on the left there. It's kind of tough, and I'll probably get a little wet, but it's better than doing the 2 crossings. One crossing is right there somewhere. The old railroad bridge crossed over there, and then the other crossing is right down there. So you got to do 2 crossings right together. And by doing that little section right there in the moss, you can avoid both of them. And here's the 5th and 6th bypass. Right there is the way I went before, basically wading in the water there, which is kind of deep. This time, I'm going to try, there's kind of a route up here, over, and then down and out where you can walk on the rocks. So, giving that a try. Well, I made it. Up there, actually required a little rock climbing almost. And then down, and from there on, walk on the rocks. Moss-covered rocks, 2 right here. And then moss-covered rocks from here on. And over there's the trail. The railroad bridge was there, over to there, and then basically cross back over to up there. Along the trail, here's a really interesting orange mushroom. So here's the 4th crossing, which I'm going to simply wade, starting right there and going up and across. It gets down to maybe 2 feet deep in places, so I'll get wet, but quicker and easier than doing the bypass trail. Here's a nice rapid which the sun is illuminating along the North Fork. I'm hiking the long stretch between the 1st and 2nd and the 3rd and 4th crossings. Sun is just now and then peeking through the trees. Very nice here. It's illuminating that small rapid there. Here's crossing number 2. I think I'll be walking down that way, and then the trail picks up over there and goes down to crossing number 1. And here's the last crossing, number 1. I crossed, I don't remember where I crossed coming going up, but I crossed above the white water there and got the wettest that I've gotten, except in a 1.5, 2 foot pool. Just about to the end of the North Fork of Citico Creek. This is the bridge across Citico Creek. Fall is definitely in the air. The acorns and early maple leaves are already falling. Getting back to Knoxville on the Citico Creek Road. Just a short way down Citico Creek, I saw these guys snorkeling as indicated by the red arrow. And then here's a video of the guy finishing up.